Welcome to Neurodivergency, where neurodivergent voices and friends turn struggle into strength. We're here to break the stigma around mental health, dive into the truth about our brains, and bring you real tools for clarity, healing, and hope. Today's guest is Sarah Bazylenko, who is a neurodiverse yogi and founder of Kind Time Studio in Sydney, Australia. Welcome, Sarah.
Thank you. It's lovely to be here.
Lovely to have you here. So let's kick off by having you tell us a little bit about yourself and your relationship to neurodivergence.
Okay. So I've always been kind of like a sickly child, and I had a lot of physical illness as a young child. And then as a teenager, I had some mental health stuff that followed me here into adulthood. But in the last couple of years, I've been diagnosed with ADHD and autism as well this year, and also functional neurological disorder. So I sort of have a bit of a gamut of of things going on, and I'm really loving it. Like as a 41-year-old, I'm just loving it. Like I'm loving getting out there and saying, this is who I am. This is what I'm like without a mask. I'm still kind of tentative with that, but I'm so pleased. It's so boring to be everyone the same all the time. It's like a nightmare. So I'm so glad to be who I am and where I am in the world.
Wow, that's so great. I really love that cheerful, joyful energy about the wonderfulness of neurodivergence. Yeah, I'm excited to get into all of the nitty-gritty about your story and how you've gotten to the point that you are at today. And to kick things off, can you tell us a little bit about the struggles that you have been through? Yeah, in whatever ways, like the most poignant, it could be multiple different phases of your life, or it could be one particular phase. Yeah, tell us about what life looked like when you were struggling.
I think I'm reading a lot recently about correlations and comorbidities with autism. And for example, in women, one of them is anorexia nervosa. So I had a lot of trouble with my weight for a very long time. And I felt like at my worst that there was just no way out. There was nothing to do, nowhere to go, no one to be. And I was very lucky. I had some very good support. I do live in Sydney, as you mentioned, but here in Australia, I did try and move back to the original place from where I was from, which is a little place called Wellington, which is near Dubbo, aka the middle of nowhere. And it was very difficult to get support, neurodiverse support, mental health support, physical health support, actually, as well. So I'm so lucky that I can stay in Sydney and live in Sydney because I'm getting all the help that I need and the support that I need now. But it's been quite a journey to find the help and address, uh, the struggles that I had in order for me to, have the tools to move forward with my life.
Yeah, that's really great to have the opportunity to move to a place where you can get more of that support that you need. I'm curious to know, how did it make you feel when you were struggling? Like what was a day or a moment in your life that is memorable for you and that you're maybe glad that things are no longer like that?
I think there wasn't a lot of feeling at times. It was like a numbness. Like I'd feel like I could pinch myself and I couldn't, like I was just numb in every way, on every kosher level, like numb in my mind. Like people used to say, oh, I'm thinking of so many things at once. And I just was, there was just nothing left, you know?
Interesting. Yeah, that it can, yeah, that numbness really prevents us from living a full life. Would you say that resonates?
Yes,
Yes.
definitely. Well, I felt very disconnected and disassociated from everything, my environment around me, but also internally as well.
Yeah, that makes sense. I feel that I don't have the skills that I should at this point about knowing how I feel and what that means about me and my situation. It's a learning curve.
For
Um,
sure. And it's a lifelong thing as well.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. So, can you tell us a bit more about what does life look like these days?
These days, it's still the reason I said just then it's a lifelong learning is because I mean, a couple of days ago, I thought I was doing really well. I've got a lot of freedom with my work life balance at the moment, which is great. I'm choosing things to do with my time that I love, also a very good thing. But what I found a couple of days ago was that I was saying yes to all the good things. So I was I was wanting to do so many things that it was just spreading myself thin again. And I was on the edge of autistic burnout again. And I wrote this sort of letter to myself and I put it as a calendar reminder. So it goes off every day and it says, stop, no. Are you thinking of adding something to the calendar? Stop, no. This calendar is closed until next year. So so I've got to remember, even if I'm doing things that are good and wholesome and good for me, I still only have a finite amount of time and resources. And um, I need time in between those times to rest.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I think I don't know how much it is correlated with autism versus how much it's correlated with ADHD, but I certainly know that there is a lot of correlation between doing new things and taking on more. And on top of that, society kind of encouraging the more you do, the more you achieve, the more you push, the better
Mm,
you're viewed, the more important you are, and so on and so on. It really is a rebellious act to slow down. So well done on that calendar tool, and yeah, well done on spreading that message.
thank you.
I'd love to know more about the journey from, I'm sure, as you said there, you mentioned you're 41, you only got recently diagnosed. So I'd love to know a bit about if we were to zoom out on the timeline of your life, what were some of the
Mm,
kind of major milestones on your mental well-being journey?
mm. Okay. So when I was born, I was diagnosed. Well, I was diagnosed at age 7 with something I'd had since birth, which was slowly killing me, and yeah, it was making me really sick. And I sort of, from that physical illness, I think I kind of it was a big catalyst. When I had the operation, I just sort of came alive. Like I was running around and jumping and loving life. And then I finished primary school and I went down to a boarding school down here in Sydney. And my eating disorder took off. And the school said to me, uh, your body shape is not the right fit for this school. So you need to see a psychiatrist or you need to leave. And I was like,
Wow,
right, okay. So I
that's
went and did
intense.
that. Yeah. But I went and did that. And the person that I met, um, I was very, very typical teenager, very, um, argumentative, rebellious, pushing the envelope, all that sort of stuff. But this woman that I met, she would just argue with me. and she would argue and argue and argue, and she would follow up like the following week. She'd be like, did you eat before you came into this room? No, you will eat before you go. And I'm like, no. And then we do it again and over and over and over. And in the end, I'd just go, oh, all right, fine. I'll go and get a sandwich afterwards. And she's like, will you? And I'm like, yes. And I had this real thing about integrity. So I had to get the sandwich. I would eat the sandwich. I'd go for a 5K run afterwards, but I would eat that sandwich. And I ended up spending time with her for 23 years. I had her as my psychiatrist, and she retired last year. So that was a big thing for me as well. Like having, and during that time, I finished school and I went back out to Dubbo, and I found that it was very difficult to access mental health support out there. And she suggested that I come back to Sydney. So I came back to Sydney and I started my degree in inclusive education and disability studies. And then I did my Montessori training as well for primary school students, and met my husband, and it's our anniversary today. So that's exciting. And yeah, from there, it was sort of more like I picked up a few. And then as an adult, after I was teaching, that's when I got into the ADHD. I had a friend who I worked with who'd been diagnosed, and she was telling me about her assessment, and I was like, "But that's me. Like, isn't that what what happens? Isn't that what people do and what people think and how people approach life?" And she was like, "No, I don't think so. That's why I went and got the assessment." And I was like, "Oh, okay." And then that sort of got me thinking. I started some medication, and that kind of got me thinking about autism. I'd worked in special ed before, and I'd seen that classic, uh, misrepresentation of the autistic community in children, where everyone just thinks they're a white male child, no one else. So I started thinking, oh, I wonder if I just wonder. I didn't really have much more than that to go on. And I just, in the end, I was just like, I'm just going to get an assessment and go through the whole process. And it's very expensive in Australia, but I got some help to pay for it. And yeah, I went and did the assessment and got my diagnosis. So now I'm just sort of like feeling it out. Not that I'm unusual, more like if I take the mask off, who am I behind it? And who am I as an outward person and an inward person? And where does that where is that comfortable spot to share?
Wow, interesting journey. Um, I'm curious to know, to what extent did your trainings in, you said disability studies or something along those lines, and also the
Mm-hmm.
Montessori
Mm-hmm.
school philosophy, to what extent does those trainings help you either understand yourself or help you with neurodiversity?
Well, I think the original degree, like I'd been really sick and in hospital before I started the inclusive education and disability studies. And I'd previously started a primary education degree out in the middle of nowhere. And I went down and went to sign up for the primary ed for where I was living in Sydney. And I saw this little inclusive education and disability studies sort of like cabana kind of thing, a little stall. And they were just really cool people. They, I don't think either of the head lecturers had disabilities, but they were just really genuine people. And they were like, you can do our degree and then just do a 2 years master's and you're trained. And I was like, okay, cool. All right. Well, I have a disability. And they're like, great, we need people. we need people like you. And I was like, far out. No one's ever responded in that way before. So, yeah, so I just did it on a whim. And yeah,
Yeah, what I'm hearing is it really made you feel seen as well to and
yeah,
included. And on top of that, maybe the connection with people who were thinking along those lines was validating as well to kind of break free from the stigma and judgments around, mental health and disability in general.
yeah. And they said things like, everybody self soothes, everybody stims. You might do it by, twirling your hair. You might do it by patting your arm while you're talking. And it just blew my mind.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think unless we are enlightened, then we are self-soothing in some way. And there's nothing wrong with that. I think the thing to strive towards is to learn to embrace our self-soothing and over time learn the lessons that we need to grow into the higher potential that we can get to in this life. You mentioned to me that you were also a yogi, and not just any yogi, but a kind of yogi that I'd never heard of before, which was Drew yoga. Could you tell us where in your life did that come in, and tell us more about what it is, and yeah, anything that comes up for you?
Okay. So I finished the undergrad degree. I started a master's. I finished with the graduate diploma, but I'd started a master's and I was really unwell. I'd been doing yoga since I was 18, and that had been really helpful with the eating disorder stuff. Um, but I I needed to go to a class. I needed to go somewhere because the stuff that I was doing at home, it just wasn't, I wasn't focused. I couldn't do it, and etc. etc. So I just found the closest class because I couldn't drive very much because I was in so much pain all the time. Uh, and I went to this class, and the woman there who was teaching was a Drew yoga teacher, and I had her for, I'm still in contact with her actually, and it's probably nearly been 10 years now. But she said, and I was always rushing, I would always rush to get to the class. And somebody said to me, if you're rushing to a yoga class, you're doing it wrong. And I'm like, well, I don't know what I'm doing. And I came to the class again, rushing, and she said, you know what? And to the whole class, you know what? If you need to lie down and just rest for the whole class, you can do that. You don't have to, you don't have to rush. You don't have to rush in here. You can come in and just lie down. You can sleep if you want. If you want me to wake you up and you're snoring, I can do that. Just you need to do what you need to do. So just listen into what you need to do and do that. So I went away and I was like, oh, another mind boggling kind of experience. And the next couple of weeks, I didn't even go to the class. I just slept. And then because I gave myself that time to rest, when I did come back, I was ready to do yoga. And it was like really relaxing. And you sort of start off with a bit of music, and you do a bit of a sort of activation, which warms up all the parts of your spine and the rest of your body. And then, you do this thing called an energy block release, which is um, like a sun sequence. You can, if you know the sun sequence, it's like that, but they're all different movements, but it's a sequence like that. And then
Uh,
you
Tell
start.
us a bit about what it is for those who don't know. I mean, I don't know, but go ahead and tell
Yeah,
us what
sure,
is a
sure.
sun sequence.
Oh, a sun sequence. It's Surya Namaskara is like a very traditional. If you do like flowing movements and you go from having your hands high to down on the floor and then back again, you're probably doing the sun sequence. So
Hmm.
energy block releases are like, you know, waking up the whole body and strength and conditioning for every part of the body, but it's also like energetically as well. So you release a lot of stuff when you're doing it. And
Yeah.
there's, I think, seven of them, seven different sequences. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean this is really the mix of the spiritual energetic aspects and the mind body connection, physical embodiment aspect that makes yoga a healing modality. I mean, I think it's Bessel van der Kolk, one of the world trauma experts these days, who advocates for yoga as a therapy. So it's, you know, it's not just therapy to rewire the mind is not just about talk. It's also about embodiment. And what I
Mm,
love about what you've just shared and a point I want to emphasize it is it was a really great aspect that the teacher was able to create the safe space to allow you to do what your body needed. Like there
mm,
we often feel shame maybe when we're the only one that feels like if everybody's got their hands up in the air and we don't feel like it or we feel like we're not able to do it, I kind of feel like, oh, I'm a failure, I'm da 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 da.
mm.
And so it's really great to have such a safe space that is created that you could really give your body what it needed.
Indeed.
And I'm curious to know how how do you feel like what do you feel were the biggest, most impactful tools or skills or experiences that you've had in your life to lead you to a better state of mental well-being?
Getting rid of the competition, I think, has been really big for me. Um, and doing that by through play and curiosity rather than perfection.
In what sense the competition?
Um, like, you know, when I was a teenager and going to a prestigious boarding school, we were sort of pitted against each other, really. We all got on as friends. I don't remember any bullying or anything like that, but the teachers would compare us to our faces, to each other. And that really instilled, you know, I was only 12 when I went down there for school. And I just thought that that was how, you know, other teenagers and other people, if you were a real adult, you were competitive, I guess. So, but it wasn't, by the time I got to Drew, it wasn't competing with other people. I wasn't looking around and competing with other people, but I was competing against myself a lot. And so I'd be like, well, last time I had my hands up like this, and now they're only like this. And that means that I'm a failure, kind of thing. I mean, not to that extent, but you get the vibe, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
So, not worrying so much about others or others' perceptions, but rather even also yourself, like focused on yourself, but without worrying too much about how you compare yourself to yourself as well, because that
mm-hmm,
could add some pressure.
mm-hmm. And I think with the Drew yoga, you know, it's I I never really got it until then, until I started doing Drew, was that it's a practice. Like you practice, you go there to practice it. It's not it's not the event. It's not the last time you're ever going to do yoga and you need to run across the line and do a downward dog. Like it's just not like that. It's still in the warm up. You're still warming up. So starting to think like that on the mat got me thinking like that off the mat too.
Wow, that's a beautiful transference of mindset and attitudes. I'm curious to know more about the particular diagnoses that you've had, and what's your, well, if somebody might be struggling with the similar diagnoses as you had, but is still early days along the journey, maybe they haven't been diagnosed with a single one, how would you be able to start recognizing that? Or what would you tell them in order to start going on the journey of understanding themselves, their brain, and their behaviors a bit better?
This is going to sound quite cliched, I think, but uh, whenever I get asked the question, what would you tell your younger self? It's 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 just to keep breathing, and then if you keep breathing and you get through the real crap of it, then you can start noticing the breathing. Then you can start being the breathing. Yeah.
Wow, sounds like a deep yogic insights there. Um, yeah, what would you say about embodiment and spirituality in terms of its impact on the journey?
That's a good question. I think it's this it comes back to what I was saying before about curiosity and play. I feel like when I was at school, I went to an Anglican school and it was very regimented. You do this, you do these things, you tick these boxes, you get down on your knees, all of that sort of stuff. And now it's more like dipping a toe in, like I think I was saying before we started that I've got these mala beads. Now, they're very beautiful and they were given to me by a, a senior teacher and a very good friend. But I don't feel like I need to use them the correct or the absolutely most perfect way in order to use them. So, for example, you have these little um, they're seeds. Hang on, I'll go like that. They're little seeds, and you put your hand on them and you say a mantra. Now, that mantra could be as long as your arm. It could go on for hours if you really wanted to do it that way. Or you could just say two words. One as you breathe in, like calm, and one as you breathe out, like ease, and then just move on to the next bead. So instead of striving for perfection and looking for spirituality in places where perhaps it isn't there, just playing and being curious, I think, has been very helpful.
Interesting. Yeah, I love that you've been on a journey to kind of break free from a lot of societal constructed mindsets like perfectionism and judgments, um, letting go of ideas that things should be a certain way, and instead really embracing your own way.
Yeah, definitely. That's a great summary.
Yeah, and I mean, I think there is something to just radical acceptance of who we are and radical self-expression of how we want to be in the world that is so blocked by society or mindsets or whatever all those things that we think we should do. And that actually, I think, is a big contributor to lack of mental well-being.
Mm,
So the more we can actually access our authentic self and the more we can be as true to who we are without judgment, then the more we actually, number one, heal or rewire ourselves to
mm,
become a better version, but also have fun. And having fun just triggers that enjoyment of life and makes that self-reinforcing cycle of positivity. that I think you've been on and experiencing.
Yes, definitely.
I'm curious to know, you mentioned masking and the true self behind masking. How does one go about identifying where there might be masking or letting go of some of our masks?
What I've been working with recently is when I'm really overwhelmed and exhausted afterwards. So when I've been masking, I can tell because I'm so done by the end of the day. Whereas if I'm true and authentic with myself, I might not really dip right out of a conversation, but I might say, I just need a break. I'll be back in 5. And I used to be a massive cigarette smoker, unfortunately. And that used to be my way out. That was the sort of socially acceptable way to have a break and unmask on my own and then, put it all back together and go back into the social situation. But learning to say, I'll, I'll be with you in 1 minute, just give me a minute, and just honoring the need to have a break just makes such a difference to my day. And I'm not, just collapsing at the end of the day now.
Yeah, it's powerful to cultivate that self-awareness of watching the exhaustion or overwhelm coming up and really honoring ourselves when we have those needs for a break. I think we're way too conditioned to just keep pushing forward, keep paying attention to things, and it's against our body's natural rhythm. We need
Mm,
breaks every now and then.
yes.
I'm curious to know, um, what other areas have we not talked about yet that you'd love to get into or cover in our conversation?
Um, well, I wouldn't mind discussing what I'm doing these days as far as work wise.
Yeah, tell us a bit about that.
Okay. So I've got this website, Kind Time Studio, and I'm sort of, my niche is kind of working with neurodiverse women. So I offer sort of free webinars and things like that, and I'm on Instagram as well and put some stuff up on there. And then I'm building up a bit of a library and going to open a membership for some women to sort of come together. And I guess the premise is, uh, we all know we shouldn't mask, or we don't yeah, we shouldn't. We shouldn't mask. We should be authentic. We should go to the gym. We should go to yoga. We should drink water. All the things that we should do. But sometimes you just need to honor your body, as we were talking about before, and just going, shit, I can't make it out of the house right now. What am I going to do? And so I
Yeah.
want to create, an online kind of membership and community where we can come together, do a bit of yoga, do a bit of breathing, do a bit of meditation, and still get what we need without going out into the world and or into a place of overwhelm.
Yeah, so you're really providing that safe space to be authentic, to honor what your body needs without the pressure for performance, with just the acceptance that it, yeah, there's good reasons behind why we're doing what we're doing. And if it's not the perfect mental structure day, if we deviate, that's okay. We
Mm.
want to honor that. And yeah, um, I'd love to hear more about the philosophies behind this offering and and what maybe specific tools or practices that you might have that you can share.
Okay. Um, Tools or practices? Well, I mean, you mean to take you through something now or to give you an overview?
We can start with an overview.
Okay. Well, there's kind of four components that I bring on the website, and I have the yoga that we've spoken about, the meditation, which is about body awareness, and then you can go deeper into mind awareness and thought awareness and spiritual awareness. Then there's the sound healing, and I've got some crystal bowls, and I play music with those, and sing a little bit sometimes. I was in a past life, I was the music coordinator, and I started a choir at a school and really enjoyed that. So it's good to keep that sort of side things up. And then there's like the community, like coming together, talking together and helping one another.
Yeah, it's really lovely to hear about those additional elements we hadn't talked about yet. I know for sure that healing in community is a highly effective way to grow rather than on our own. I mean, there's always a certain amount that we can do on our own, but really when we have community, we can step out of our own way in terms of how much we get in our heads or
Mm.
ruminate about our own situation, and we can instead lean on the help of others who are not so much in our problems and have that energetic co-regulation. So that's a
Mm.
really powerful way to access um improvements. And you mentioned meditation and sound healing as well. I'd love to hear a bit more about that. How does that work, or how does that help? What's it like if I were to go to a sound healing experience? What might I get out of it?
Okay. So there's a bit of a structure to what I do with sound healing and meditation. The first thing we do is well, we'd probably usually start with a bit of yoga actually to sort of, because you want to, have you ever heard of that song, Shake Your Sillies Out? So you want to do the
No.
yoga to shake all your sillies out, and then you come to lie down and you just move one body part at a time. So you might move your right foot first and then roll it in one direction and the other, and then you go up and all the way through the body, just moving one bit at a time. And that kind of is like the final sillies, getting all those out. Then you go through the body again, the subtle body, with all those body parts in the same order, but you're just becoming aware of them. You're not moving them anymore. Then there's stillness, and that's where the sound healing comes in. So I've got the 7 chakra bowls. I will have probably spoken to you and found out about what's going on with you. So, for example, if you're feeling very ungrounded, I might focus on the root chakra bowl as we go through the sound healing journey. And then at the end, I finish with the bowls, and um, we could probably do it now. Would you be open to doing a little bit of a reawakening? You don't have to lie down, you can do it sitting.
Yeah, we can totally have that. Yeah.
Okay, so sit in a comfortable position with your feet flat on the floor, shoulders up, back, and down. Now you can have your eyes closed or downcast and imagine a golden light at the crown of your head. What does this light look like? Is it thick like honey? Is it soft like a cloud? Is it is it heavy like gold? Imagine the golden light dripping down over your beautiful brain, down over your face, down your neck. down over your shoulders, your upper arms, lower arms, and hands. Feel the golden light re-livening and reawakening you as it comes down your chest and your back, filling your torso, down over your abdomen, down, down, down into your sit bones and into your upper legs, knees, lower legs, and feet. You are completely awake and alive. You are present and open. You are made of light. You are light. And when you're ready, bring some movement to your fingers and toes. Stretch in whatever way feels comfortable for you and come back to the room.
Wow, I love that. I love that. Thank you
So
for
good,
taking
right?
us through this demonstration. Yeah, it's really amazing. I mean, there's so much to it. And it's really indescribable until we try and we have that experience. It really reminds me of my first therapy experience, which was not classical talk therapy. It was actually a Buddhist meditation called
Yeah,
Feeding Your Demons. And
yeah,
it's a similar process, but much longer and more intentional, and incorporates I mean, not that this wasn't intentional, but it's intentional on working on some particular thing, whether it's a
yeah.
thought, a behavior, or pattern, or whatever it may be, and really accessing where that is in the body and then feeding it this golden light or nectar of
Oh,
healing.
cool.
Yeah,
That's really cool.
yeah, there's just, I mean, the fact that a lot of these mind body kind of practices exist is really for good reason, because as much as in the West we tend to look at things that are a little bit spiritual or woo woo as not really worth some credits, but there is a big thing that's Western medical or science has not yet figured out the functioning of, and it relates to the placebo effect, and it relates to spirituality, and it relates
Mm,
to our true nature. And that's where all of this stuff can actually be helpful if we can just have the belief enough to be able to try it and see how it lands. It's,
yes.
yeah. So I really appreciate having, yeah, that little experience. Um, yeah, what's your opinion on how spirituality connects to mental well-being?
Oh, that's a good question. Oh,
And if
I
it makes
think
things easier, you can start by sharing your particular spiritual views or understandings. It maybe be helpful as a starting point.
yeah, yeah. Well, I'm in recovery from marijuana addiction as well. So Marijuana Anonymous is like AA, but just for marijuana. And when I was doing the 12 steps of that program, which are pretty much the same as AA, the main kind of takeaway from that whole period was that there is something bigger than me, there is something greater than me. And I liked the AA kind of way of thinking about it, because it was like you don't need to drill down and know what that is, just that it's there.
Yeah.
So I've sort of kept pretty broad with my spiritual kind of beliefs, in that I I feel like there's definitely something greater. I'm not an atheist. I think there's something greater than us, but the ways in which we get to that spirit, I think, is, you know, it is different for everyone. And some people feel like there's like a God for every single thing. And some people think that there's one God, and some people think that there's the community or the rooms in which they're talking, the God is there. And for me, I'm like, I'm interested in hearing, you know, what different people think and why, the reason why I find so interesting. So I love having conversations about it because um, it's so interesting to see you. Like, I find that a lot of the conversations I have, a lot of the people are getting to this same place. They're just taking different paths to get there, really.
Yeah, yeah, I love that. Yeah, one the step in AA just is about recognizing a higher power or higher source, and that can be interpreted in so many ways.
Mm,
When I lead a meditation and a part of it involves that higher self or that higher power,
mm,
I I can call it out sometimes as God or nature or
mm,
consciousness or the universe. I mean, whatever it is that you believe in, use that. Um, and so, yeah, I completely agree. So now to get back to that original question, how do you feel that that plays, like what role does that play in mental well-being?
mental well-being. Well, because I came to believe that there was a power greater than myself, I stopped believing I was God, I was alone, and I was the only one that knew how I felt. So that had huge ramifications for my mental well-being because I wasn't so ego driven. I was able to see beyond myself and get the help and use the tools available to me in order to heal myself.
Yeah, almost like a pathway of surrender and letting go
Yeah.
to what we're attached to or what we think we should do or be, and instead flowing towards the signs and the tools that are actually going to help us on our path.
Yeah.
Yeah, I appreciate hearing that. I know, and maybe others need to hear that I've had the similar thoughts about being God or being Jesus, and it's a complex thing to make sense of. Actually, when I was manic, I had these. I was just way too erratic about it. My relationship with those ideas was not grounded, and I could still have the same idea today, but I could talk about it in a much more grounded way. And
Mm,
and that's because of the spiritual exploration that I've done. And it seems that your path has a similar kind of line to it.
mm,
Yeah.
definitely.
Yeah, interesting. Um, as we wind down towards the end of the conversation, I'm curious to hear if you have any other subjects that you want to touch on or anything that you might want to emphasize. Like what, thinking about a neurodivergent audience with a lot of diversity in terms of who they are, what their situation is, what
Mm.
would be your messages to them?
It'd come back to it'd come back to what I would say to myself if I could go back in time and just not just. I hate that word just sometimes. Like people say just and you're just like, ah. Anyway, I'm going around in circles. I would say keep keep breathing, and then notice the breath, and then be the breath. Yeah.
Yeah, beautiful. Yeah, a little comment about that word just. I mean, I think it's a right reaction because when we say just, it kind of implies that you're not enough. If you can
Yeah.
just focus more, if you can just get up and go to the gym, if you could just drink more water, what does that imply? It's like, I'm just not able to do it. Well,
Yeah, yeah,
actually,
that's right.
there's a reason behind that.
Yes.
I'm a big believer that the real stuff is what actually happens. We can think that we want to go to the gym or drink more water. We can think that we should resist that cigarette or that joint. But if the thing actually happens or doesn't happen, if we don't manage to go to the gym today, or if we do smoke that joint or eat that extra pack of biscuits, then there's a good reason behind that. And actually,
Mm,
going back to the breath, as you say, it helps us be back into the present. It helps us regulate. It helps us increase that gap between the thought of the temptation and the actual action. And this is also where meditation comes into play. So I think it's super linked. And yeah, break free from just. They're just, yeah,
absolutely.
just break free
Just
from the
don't do
just.
it.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. Easier said than done. But breathing and coming back to the breath is a very good program to install. And it's a practice, isn't it?
Yeah, for sure. And I think the other thing that changed for me was just thinking I can cope. Instead of I can't cope, I can't cope, I started just changing it to I can cope. And then I'd breathe and just repeat, 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 repeat. Yeah.
Was that because of the breathing that you were able to start making that training?
No, I was bullshitting myself to start with. I didn't believe it. But after a while of just that mantra, just going over and over with the breath, I realized that it was true because it was happening right now. Like I was coping. Like the more I said I can't cope, the more I would freak out and not cope. The more I sat with my breath and chanted I can cope, that gave me the space to cope.
Wow, that's beautiful. Yeah, and it really goes to show that that repetition can really make wonders, even when we don't believe it at first. Like it really is about the baby steps and the small transition. You don't need to necessarily, I don't know, resist eating the full pack of biscuits or go to the gym. You can just eat half the pack of biscuits or three-quarters of it first and then kind of work your way up. Or, instead of going to the gym, you can do a little bit of weights at home or just go for a walk. And yeah, it
Yeah,
really is about that training and that consistency.
definitely.
Um, yeah, super cool. Sarah from Kind Time Studios. Um, Obviously, your biography and any relevant links will be in the show notes attached to this episode below. What would be the next step for somebody if they want to get in touch with you?
I've got a contact page on my website, or I'm on Instagram at Sarah Kind Time as well. You can DM me on there.
Super cool. Well, Sarah, thank you so much for sharing your words of wisdom, your inspiring story, that presence and embodiments, and some really practical tools for hope and healing, including that golden lights exercise. It's been wonderful having you on the podcast. And yeah, thank you again so much.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, Anthony. It's been great.
Such a pleasure.